Welcome to the Time to Practice podcast. This is a space where we talk about music practice, the ups and downs that young musicians go through related to practice and learning music, and how we as parents, caregivers, and music educators can support the young musicians in our lives, support ourselves, and support each other. My name is Christine Goodner. I'm a music educator, author, and podcaster who has made it my mission to talk about music practice and to support educators and families looking to make home practice more effective and to reduce conflict and frustration in the practice room. I'm glad you're here. Today's episode was inspired by a recent talk I gave to a wonderful group of Suzuki parents and teachers in North Carolina, all about creating an inspiring practice community. And I want to start off by talking about a few different kinds of practice that our music students or children in music lessons might engage in. For example, individual practice, parent or caregiver guided or supported practice, peer practice, where maybe another student or child or student's age is practicing along with them, or maybe a practice buddy, like a mentor who's a teen who practices with a younger child and supports their music practice. And then also there's ensemble group practice, often led by an adult, like a teacher or an ensemble director. So with peers, but also with adult support. These, of course, are not the only four types of practice we could imagine for music practice and young musicians, but they are four types I think is helpful to think about, whether we're teachers or parents and family members supporting the musicians in our lives. So today in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about those different kinds of practice and a few ways we can support them as a community and offer opportunities for these different kinds of practice to happen or to motivate these different kinds of practice in our community through our studios, in our programs, or our homes. I think it's important to think about creating this music community for each other so that we can pool our energy, our ideas, our resources, and offer opportunities for students we work with, but also to us as the adults supporting those students to connect and stay invigorated with new ideas and motivation of our own. My hope is this episode helps you think outside the box about ways to incorporate music practice and improving skills and supporting one another as a community, maybe in ways that haven't occurred to you before or just you haven't thought of in a while. You can bring up some things that are great reminders. And more importantly, that you don't feel like it's all on you as an individual to make this happen for your own students or your own children. I think it's really helpful to think about who could you partner with in your studio, your school, your program, in your neighborhood or family or faith community, local and state community level, and also just someone you know down the street whose child also takes music lessons. I might want to get together to have your children play music with and for one another. It can be ideas on a big and small scale, both that help us make up the music community in our lives. And to kick us off, I'd like to share an article that I will link to in the show notes by Dr. Elisa Janson Jones about why community is so important in our music lives. The article is titled Community Building and Its Long-Term Impact on Music Education. And for some context, Elisa is currently serving as the executive director of the Music Teachers Guild. And this article I really enjoyed because it put into words what I know and have experienced to be true about the importance of community in music education. I always think it's helpful to see something that we've been sort of having a gut feeling about written out in an article form like this. So, some of the benefits for teachers for community that this article talks about are sharing resources, sharing innovative ideas, gaining emotional support, and opportunities for mentorship. And all of these, the article says, are shown to contribute to both job satisfaction and to reduce burnout. All of these things are very important for music teachers. And I know when I'm connecting with other teachers, whether it's one on one or my state community or on a national level, those are the times when I feel reinvigorated with new ideas, where I feel like, oh, I was reminded of something I used to do and I hadn't thought of in a while. And we can get mentorship both from teachers who've been teaching a lot longer than us and also for newer teachers with less experience, but maybe with new innovative ideas we haven't thought of before. And I think the mentorship can come from all directions for us and really help keep us going as music teachers. I think it's really important. The article also states some benefits of community for students: enhanced musical growth, performance opportunities, and being a part of the larger music world. And I was thinking about what I would add to that list about what community can give to students that I work with or that gave to me as a student. I think community can give us a sense of motivation, that being part of a bigger music world. A lot of these things can help motivate us to go in the practice room and get our practice done as a student because we want to be a part of some of these things. I think community can give us an exposure to a rich variety of ideas and experiences. It can give us social connections, and I think that's true for students and also their families. And I think also between students, there's a sense of shared resources and mentorship that happens that's equally as important as the one that is happening between music educators. And while this article didn't mention it, I think community also adds so much to parents and families supporting music students. And, because I'm a Suzuki teacher, families are very involved in my program. And whether you are part of a Suzuki program or not, still you are an important part of your child's musical journey as their parent or caregiver who is supporting them. And parents and family members and other support grown-ups really need their own motivation and support as well. Community can give us a sense of perspective. When we get to share with other families supporting their music students, we can hear, like, oh, yes, this was hard for me too. Or, oh, this skill also took my child a long time to learn. Or here's the thing that really made a difference for us. And that perspective can be invaluable to keep us going. Parents and families also, I think, need and benefit from community and feeling less alone. That sense of validation I was just alluding to, and feeling like other people are doing this too. Other people are on this journey trying to help motivate their child or get their child started in practice or get them to all the things related to their music practice. And that feeling of community around our own experience can be really helpful too. I think also community can give us creative idea generation to support our child in practice, and just the community we get from sharing ideas on this podcast about what is working for people at home to get their child practicing and working with their child in practice. Friendship and peer support, we talked about that on the teacher level and the student level, but it's equally important, I think, for families who are supporting their children, having their own sense of friendship and peer support in the music world. I like to think of supporting young music students as being a web of support that comes from music educators of various kinds in a child's life, as well as parents and other supportive adults in their life supporting them as well. And each piece of that supportive web needs its own sense of community and support to thrive, I think. So, why is this so important to talk about today? Well, I think because creating that inspiring community around supporting young musicians is so much easier when we work together and we don't feel like we're on our own, or we have to come up with creative ideas all by ourselves to inspire our own students or to inspire our own children, whether we're a teacher or a parent. This is part of why I love creating this podcast and connecting with all of you. I feel like you are all part of my community. And I know that from some of the emails and comments I get from some of you that I am part of your support network as well. And this is part of why this resource exists. And I'm glad that you're here getting one piece of your support community from this podcast. I think if practice feels like it's all about an individual going into the practice space alone 100% of the time, or it's all on the practice parent at home with a young child they're supporting to make practice happen and work effectively, or it's all on the teacher to come up with all the motivational ideas in a student's life, that can feel like a lot of pressure on one particular person to make this work. But in an ideal world, we have a rich variety of ways to interact with music in our practice lives. And I think that's especially important for young musicians who are just getting that motivation and interest in music that will hopefully last them their whole life sparked for them. There's an important place for individual work or work with the guidance of a practice grown up, depending on our age. But being with other musicians, connecting through music in social ways, and being part of something bigger than ourselves is priceless motivation. I wanted to give a few ideas about how we could all support practice in a community minded way as we finish up the podcast together today. I think for everyone, whether you are a teacher or a parent, looking for ways to support consistency in our young musicians' practice lives is something that is an effort that can come from many different places. We could have practice challenges. We can have recognition as a family, as a studio community. Could be a statewide or even national level, recognizing milestones reached, like book graduations or starting a new piece or completing a music reading book or a theory book. There's a lot of different milestones we could celebrate, and looking for ways to recognize students for what they're accomplishing and can be a big way that we can all support practice as a community. And while we might talk about in a minute some different ways to create events and activities around music, one other thing that we can all do is just open up to what is going on in our community already. What events are happening locally that you could be a part of? What live concerts are happening? What events are going on, like play ins or concerts or graduations that already exist that you could just tap into and be a part of as part of your child's supportive music community? Thinking of teachers for a bit, some of us have very active state organizations or local organizations that put on a lot of these events. But many of you listening, I know, are living and working in smaller communities where these things are not already existing. And I think maybe it could be as simple for us in those situations to find one other teacher that we could connect with. And maybe it will grow from there, or maybe you can have quite a few teachers if we're lucky. But some ways that teachers could build some community. And this could be within your studio, or, like I said, by partnering up with other teachers, offering graduation celebrations, offering play in events, offering workshops. In my own studio, I bring in another teacher once a year to work with my own students. And that creates a sense of community with me and the broader teaching world, and also gives great motivation and help to my students in their progress. Local institutes or summer camps, if we can get our students there, sometimes that is a way for them to feel like I'm part of something bigger in the music world. Having discussions. So, getting together with other teachers. This could be virtually if you live somewhere that is not physically close to other teachers, or it could be in person, but getting together and say, let's all talk about motivating our students to practice, for example. And then that's where we can get that energy of pooling our resources and our creative ideas and mentoring one another to help support our efforts in supporting our students. Another idea I'll share with people often is if you could find another teacher where you guest speak for one another. Maybe there's a parent talk, somebody comes in and talks about how to support your child in their music practice at home. If I have a teacher friend who's willing to speak to my students and then I can speak to theirs, we could have an exchange that way of ideas. And sometimes it's great to hear from someone who is not our teacher, even if they're saying very similar things. It gives great credibility to what's already being shared with our students. And it's a way to team up with another teacher and share ideas with each other's students. And you could also get together. There's some local organizations that do a book club where they get together and teachers will all read a book and discuss them together. And a lot of creative ideas can be shared that way. I know I personally will read a book and finish it to completion if I know I'm going to discuss it with other people. And that can be a fantastic way to support our own motivation and new idea building as teachers with one another. Again, a lot of these things could be done with local teachers in your area if you are lucky to have other teachers to collaborate with, or they could be done virtually. Find another teacher that you connect with, even if they don't live in your area, and you can team up to help support one another as a community that way. I think that book club idea is also wonderful for families and parents to think about with each other. Maybe you could suggest a book you found about music practice and suggest it to other parents in the studio. And you could say, I will lead the book discussion during group class one week, for example, or I will offer a home, or I'll arrange to meet up in a coffee shop. Let's all read this as parents and discuss together. This can be great ways to support our child's journey and not feel like we're in it alone. And then finally, I'll wrap up with a few ideas for parents and families. So, that parents led book club or discussion group can be a great one. It could be you and one other parent who you know is interested. Maybe you chat with one another at recitals and you say, oh, I'm reading this book about practice. Would you like to discuss it with me? Or it could be a bigger effort with more people in your studio or program. I think connecting with other families to talk about how they're supporting their student or what's working for them in practice can be great. And you could start as simple as next time there's an event in your studio. My own studio has recitals coming up this weekend. Maybe you chat with a parent that you've met at another event and just ask them like what's working really well for practice at your house right now, and have some small conversations that start to spark a sense of community or friendship with other parents that you see in your program. I know from experience, not every person we might approach with these kinds of conversations is open to discussing in an open way. But I think if you keep trying and find other like-minded people in the studio, you will find some people who are really excited to discuss these things with you. Don't be discouraged if you don't you find that person on the first try. You could also ask your teacher, could you connect me with other families in the studio that you think might want to discuss this kind of thing? I'd like to set up a little support group for us. And I know as a teacher, I'd be delighted to help with that. Another thing parents and families can do is look for opportunities to have informal performances in the community, whether that's playing at a local farmer's market, if your community allows it, setting up a performance at a retirement home nearby, setting up a play date between your young children, and then an informal performance with and for one another after some time to play together. Those can be great ways to spark some motivation to practice because there's a performance opportunity, but also to have some social time connected with music. That can be so, so motivating. And I think anything along those lines that you could do that supports social time, connection time with making music is wonderful. So, looking for ways to get our students into those activities can be great. And sometimes they exist in our community and it's a matter of tapping into them. And sometimes it takes some creativity to think about what could I create for my child as an opportunity like this because I don't see one available to me right now. I think whoever we are supporting young musicians as a community, we can ask ourselves what opportunities we can offer to help support student engagement and growth and motivation. What can we do to help that peer to peer practice and social opportunities mixed with music making happen in our student or children's lives? What can we do to find opportunities for ensemble or communal playing and sharing of music together? How can we support each other as teachers and parents or caregivers to pool ideas and resources to connect, and not just on a big scale from bigger organizations, which is also great, but also on a small scale with a friend from the studio, with a neighbor who also plays an instrument, with a practice challenge that's our whole association run by the state, or our whole studio or program, or just our own family with our own child. And we have a little incentive at the end of every 10 days of practice for a while if there's a little practice motivation slump. The thing about community that I shared with the group I spoke to recently that I'd like to leave you with today is that community is really made up of me and of you. If we want to see these kinds of supportive community ideas being shared or opportunities being offered to participate in, it's really up to each one of us to reach out to one person or look for another person interested in the same idea and to start small to help create the support systems we'd like to see if we don't already see them happening. It could be as simple if you're a parent as reaching out to your teacher to say, hey, are there any other parents or families interested in? And then whatever you would love to see happening community wise, see if you can find those other like-minded people looking to make those same things happen and connect with them to make some community for yourselves as parents that you would like to see that you don't see happening otherwise. And I think the same can be said for us teachers who are looking for ways to combine efforts with those in our community, whether that's near or far. I hope this gave you some food for thought today about a big topic that we are touching on just the surface of today about why it's so important to have community in music education. And that's not just for teachers and for students, but I would also say for parents supporting young musicians as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any ideas you'd like to share after listening to this episode. You can send me an email, Christine@SuzukiTriangle.com, or send me a message on Instagram @SuzukiTriangle. I look forward to being back with you here next week, everyone. Take very good care.